what's up? Welcome to the Lifeonaires Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Lifeonaires Show, we help people make more, work less, and create lives and businesses they love. I am joined by a different co-host today. We have a special co-host, special gift for you. We have Jackie Conkle online. What's up, Jackie?
Hello, I'm doing great. I'm so excited for our guest today. He's one of our students, and he's been with us for almost 2 years, and you're in for a treat.
Brian is absolutely awesome. I'm so glad that we have him on the show. For our listeners, a couple things I want you to listen for in this episode. One is, what things in your life aren't going as well as you'd like, and what can you do about them? Brian is going to talk about his job. He's going to talk about he was working crazy hours. I don't want to give it away. Crazy hours. Life was kind of not what he expected. And also with that, he created a vision. It has to do with relationships and some other places in his life where he saw a significant room to really pursue some things that are important to him. And so I want you to be listening for vision. I want you to be hearing Brian's heart for making a change and doing what it takes to get there. Because at the end of the day, you're going to hear some awesome stuff, and it took work. And Brian did the work, and he's reaping the results of that. So let's go right now to our interview with Brian Volk. Brian, what's up? Welcome to the Lifeonaires Show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
This is great. So you are somebody who Jackie has brought up in conversation, and, you're one of her students, and Jackie has just not, she wouldn't let me go without saying, hey, you have to get Brian in the Lifeonaires Show. Like, he has such a cool story in two different areas, really, that I think our audience will really enjoy hearing about. The first of which is, like, you've made this transition out of your job. And that's something that a lot of people have aspirations to do. There's a lot of fear around it. There's a lot of hesitancy. Some people never do it because they don't have a vision for what waits for them on the other side of that 9 to 5. And then the other part that I think would be cool to talk about on the podcast is, like, because again, your vision is something that you worked on. There's another area in terms of your relationships that I think would be really cool for people to hear about as well. But tell people a little bit about yourself. And so let's talk about the job first. Like, so what you had a full-time job?
Yes, I actually did. I was a service technician, and I worked on embroidery and screen printing equipment. And I worked the 50, 60-hour weeks. So as a service technician, my territory was actually the 48 states.
That's it?
That's it. Just 48 states.
Well, you're an underachiever. What about all 50?
Well, we do have customers in Hawaii, but they wouldn't let me go.
Those rascals. All right.
So so my territory is, kind of big, and I was gone a lot, on the road, fly on Monday, come home on Friday, 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. I'd been doing it for 9 years when I found Lifeonaires, and I was always gone, working. I loved what I do. Loved what I did for the company. Customers loved me as their technician. It just wore on me.
And you had a family during this time as well.
Oh yeah, I had a family. I have a family, not had.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's clarify. Everybody has a family. That wore. It wore on the family life. It wore on the friends' life. It just being gone all the time and not really truly living what I wanted to live.
And I'd like to interject. You were also trying to build your real estate investing business with your wife and not even hiring it out. So you guys were trying to do all the work. So that's how you spent your weekends. So let's be real. You were working Monday to Monday. Mm-hmm. You were always working.
Yes.
One way or another.
Correct.
You just got called out there, Brian.
Yeah, I know. And that's one of the things that our coaches do. They keep us honest.
Right.
Both the coaches and the group. And that's one of the big reasons I love Lifeonaires.
So what was, man, so you did this for 9 years.
Yes.
Did the job change? And that's what was finally the straw that broke the camel's back for you? Like, were you like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna do this for 10 years. What finally made you make that change? Because you had been doing it for so long. up to that point. And, there's a lot of people who say they're unhappy at their job, but they just continue to do it. Like, what was it that pushed you over the edge?
Well, to be honest with you, what pushed me over the edge is I was sitting at a 3-day with my platinum group, and, the whole group is like, Brian, you're miserable. What's going on? And they brought it out into me that, it's not that I'm miserable in my job. I love what I do. I hate to say it over and over again, but I love what I do.
Yeah.
It's the circumstances that the job brought to my life that I didn't like. So the whole group, including Jackie and my other coaches, they're like, then change it. Why not? You can change it. So then that got the wheels turning, and well, how can I change it? Well, what I did is I turned it into a 1099 job. Okay. So I still work for them, but it's on my time now. So I give them availability, and I go when I want to go.
So you finally had enough where people started pointing out like, hey, if this isn't fitting your life, even if you love it. And I think that's true. Like, you can have parts of your life that are fantastic. Like if I love working out, but I'm working out 10 or 12 hours a day and everything else in my life is suffering, like it's probably not a good fit. And so you created a vision. You mentioned the 3-day, and that's the Get a Life Getaway. For those of you who aren't familiar with what Brian's talking about, that's an event Lifeonaires holds. And so you put together this vision, and you realize with the help of your group, there's a conflict here. There's an issue here that needs to be addressed. And so how did that actually, first of all, make you feel? I mean, you've worked 9 years doing this. Like, was there anything you struggled with? Like, had you built your identity around this job at all? And now you were struggling to find that? Like, what was that like for you to make that realization?
My biggest struggle was finances, to make sure that I took care of my family, to make sure I was able to, make the mortgage payment, put gas in the car, put food on the table. Yeah. That was a real hard struggle. And that's the part I struggled with the hardest. I was really afraid of that. But, looking at the plan that was laid out and talking it through with my partner, my wife, she's my partner in business and my partner in life. Talking through it with my partner, she's like, you've got it all laid out. You can do this. We can make it work. You're the one that can turn it on and off. If we need more, turn it on a little more. If we don't need more and rock solid, your real estate company, it takes off and moves on and gets it to the point where we want to get it. Then you don't have to do that 1099 anymore. You can stop doing that, which is the ultimate goal. Okay.
So you put together a plan. Like what were some of the components of that plan and some of the steps? Because people, I think, in their head are like, yeah, I want to quit my job, but they never really put to paper, like what actually has to happen for this to become a reality? What were some of those things for you?
Well, first things first, we took a hard look at our budget and what money we actually needed. Mm-hmm. And then we looked through basic finances. I just hate to break it down that way, but what do we really need to bring in? And then from there, how much did I really want to work? Okay, so I only want to work X amount of hours or X amount of days. We need this amount of money. This is what you need to charge them. Is it too much? I thought it was. I walked in and they said, sure, no problem.
Could have got more.
Whoa, hold on a second.
I undervalued myself.
Well, hold on a second, Brian. I want to unpack that for a second. So you were getting paid as an employee.
Correct.
You figured out the numbers with your wife, with Beth. You said, hey, based on how much I want to work, this is how much I need to make. You went into your employer and said, this is what I want. And they said, yes.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
And he said instead of 80 hours a week, because at that point they were killing him with just always out of town, always traveling. He was putting in a ton of hours. He said, if I'm not wrong, you said 80 hours a month, right? I'll give you 80 hours a month. You can use them however you want. But after that, my month is over, or you got to find someone else.
So you're putting in like
the same money for half the time.
Well, I'm hearing even a quarter of the time. If we like some,
right.
A quarter of the time. Cause 4 weeks on average a month. So he was putting in 120 and wait, 4 times 4 weeks per month of, whatever 60-hour weeks, that's 240 hours. So you're now down to a third of that time for the same money. That's a 3x, that's a 300% pay raise plus a huge drop in hours. Like, so what was your reaction when they said yes? Were you like, dang it, I should have like asked earlier.
Should have asked for more. I should have asked for more. Shoulda,
right?
But yeah, I'm not going to should on myself.
That's right.
You know, I had one of my coaches when I was in the process of setting this up and negotiating this. He looked across the table from me. Steve Halverson looked across the table and said, "Brian, are you really that good? Can you really ask for that?" And without hesitating, I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Good, then go do it. There's nothing holding you back." I had in me, I knew in me that I could go forward and ask for that, but yet I was very hesitant of doing it because of all those things in the background saying, "No, you've worked this career since 1983. You've been in this business since then. You don't know anything else. What happens if?" Well, what happens if you move on? You pick it up and you figure something out and move on.
Was there some fear there? They did tell you to take a hike?
Obviously there was. I have a little insight because of my position in the company. I knew that if I left, the company would be hurting really bad. They'd struggle for a while. They'd replace me eventually. But I kind of sort of had them. I mean, with COVID, the way it happened with laying all of our techs off and me being the only one there and me walking in and saying, "Guess what, guys? I'm cutting my time. I'm not going to be at your beck and call." I mean, there were times where I would find out on Friday at 5 p.m. that I needed to be in Detroit on Monday at 7 a.m. And I had plans for the next week to do things.
Right.
Meet up with contractors to take care of my flips, or, get some stuff done on the flip to get it ready to sell or whatever. I had to completely put my life on hold with that side of with my business that I was trying to grow, just because I was at their beck and call. And to be able to go in and say, my time now. So this is how it's going to go. And for them to accept it was kind of like, wow, just a wow feeling. It made me feel really, really, really good about me, who I was, what I was doing. And it just made me feel good about it.
That's pretty incredible. I can't also imagine, like, with that kind of like fluctuation in the demands that they had from you, it must have made it difficult to tend to your family, to tend to your other business. Like, life was pretty much in their hands. And it sounds like you took a large part of that back.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was actually starting to wear on my marriage. It was wearing on my relationship with my kids. I have 2 stepchildren and 2 of my own kids from a previous marriage. And the children from my previous marriage lived with their mother. And with me being gone all the time and not being able to invest time in them, kind of made our relationship grow extremely apart, to the point where I hadn't talked to my daughter in a couple years, face to face. And part of my journey and part of my Lifeonaire journey was obviously writing down a vision. And high priority on my vision was to rekindle my relationship with my children. And a big step in leaving my W-2 job, transforming it into 1099, was allowing me that time to be able to, on a dime, go do something. I have rekindled my relationship with my daughter and my son. And it's an unbelievable feeling to have that back.
How old are your kids?
My daughter's 26 and my son's 24. Got
it. And you've had the opportunity now to what was that like? I mean, that's how long, and I don't know the details here, but was this caused by a gradual deterioration of the relationship because you're gone all the time? or did something happen? And how do you rekindle that? Because like there's a lot of people that have similar issues with their kids. And sometimes it's like one big incident happens and then there's a lot of hurt feelings and they go separate ways. Or sometimes it's just a gradual deterioration of that communication because of life's obligations or things that have happened. Like, what was that like for you?
Well, the way I rekindled my relationship with my daughter, I'll go back to, it was something that came out of my titanium group. I was challenged to write a letter to my daughter and let her know exactly how I feel and exactly where I was coming from, just to lay it on the line and let her know that I'm not mad at her. And it's, you know, some of this is my fault. Some of it's your fault. Let's just get over it and let's have a relationship. I'm your dad. And that was a really hard letter to write.
It took a
But
minute.
I wrote it and I mailed it to her. And a couple weeks later, she called me and I found out she was buying a house. And, you know, once she bought the house, she called me and said, "Hey, Dad, I've got this and this that I need done around the house. And I know you're kind of handy. Can you come help me?" And I jumped on that with 4 feet. I was like, hell yeah, I'm there.
Yeah.
And that started the ball rolling.
Right.
And from there, you know, it's just been a matter of, you know, you got to nurture it. You can't just let it sit there. You got to make the effort on my end. And she had to make the effort on her end. And now we've rekindled a relationship where, you know, she lives a half an hour, 45 minutes from here. And now we're seeing each other. I've seen her more in the past 6 months than I did in the last 3 years.
Wow. That is amazing.
It started with that letter and he just kept, you know, I remember, Brian, how you were just thinking that wasn't going to be repairable.
Right.
And I don't know if you're purposely not sharing all the reasons, but if you want to.
Well, I mean, there were factors in my divorce. There were factors that I had a drinking problem and I did quit drinking a couple of years ago. And
you are how long sober right now?
March 9th next year will be 3 years. So 2+
Congrats.
years. Thank you.
Awesome.
He's doing amazing.
Thanks, guys.
There was just so much, Brian. I remember when we first sat down with you and just talking about your vision and how that was on there and like, well, what do we got to do? And then we found out how deep it was. It wasn't just like calling up your kids and saying, "Hey, I have time." It was like, first I have to make sure that my kids will talk to me, you know, and kind of taking that step and repairing the past or letting it go. And so I remember that letter, you know, we had to hold you accountable to getting it out and putting it together. And it was really hard for you. But watching how things grew after that and now hearing how you guys hang out and how you've been able to bring Beth back into the fold, because obviously, you know, with whenever there's a divorce and a remarriage, there's also that animosity as well. And Brian's done an amazing job. And Beth's been right there alongside of him, supporting and understanding. And now they're all able to hang out and have family fun days and stuff like that. So it's just been a really cool thing for me to be able to see happen, and just, you know, watching what's going on over there. So, I mean, you've got the business, you've got the W-2 to the 1099, you've got this, you know, family that's doing amazing. You've got, you know, all this time sober and just keeping that going, even through, you know, the stress and the tough times, which is when honestly, a lot of people fail, you know, and they fall back. But Brian's been amazing at keeping his vision in front of him. He's turned himself into a pretty good no man when it's time to say no, and a yes man when it's time to say yes to his vision. When the job comes and asks Brian, "Hey, we need a couple extra hours out of you," he's like, "No, I gave you 80. You used them all up. I'm sorry. Call me next month." Like, he is. And even though he could use the money, he knows who he is and where he'll go. If he gives them an inch, they'll take a mile. So he stands his ground. They have Friday night pizza night. It doesn't matter where in the country they are or what else they're like. They they keep that together. They've spent more time with friends and family and together. I mean, just watching all these things explode in their lives, and they've been blessed with some incredible deals. They don't work on their properties anymore, and they make a lot more money than they did putting all that back into it. And, so, I mean, you can talk as much about all those other things as you want, but that's kind of what I have seen. I mean, this is a vision on steroids and watching it unfold. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
That is awesome, Brian. I just have one more question for you here. Is like, somebody else wants to contribute to the podcast too.
Part of their vision, they rescue dogs. They help
rescue. No, that's not part of my vision.
That's your wife's vision.
That's part of my wife's vision. But Wojo, back me up on this. When your wife has a vision, it becomes part of yours too.
Yeah. If you want to be alive to live your vision. So, Brian, man, just hearing you talk and hearing Jackie comment on what she's seen happen to you is truly like inspiring. What would you say to somebody who is looking at their life? Because, like, quite frankly, what I hear, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like I hear you were drinking a lot, you were working around the clock, your relationships weren't good. There's multiple areas of your life that could feel certainly overwhelming, daunting, intimidating. Some people probably just give up. What would you say to somebody who's looking at their life and they feel like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't know what to do. I just feel so beat up. Like, what should I do? Like, what are your words? What would you say to them?
Read the Lifeonaires book.
Okay.
I don't know how many of them I've given out. I've had people ask me, Brian, you're completely different. What's going on with you? What changed your life? And I said, to be honest with you, Lifeonaires did. And it made me realize that I got to focus on me. Everything else will just play out. If I focus on me, what I want, and focus on my vision, everything else plays out.
Well, man, I love hearing that, but at the end of the day, you did the work, my friend. You made it happen, and you are the credit where the credit is due. So I really want to thank you for sharing this message of hope for others, of light, that people can make big changes, several changes in their own life to whatever they create their vision to look like, that it is absolutely achievable and attainable. Thanks for being on the Lifeonaires show, man. Looking forward to hearing of your future successes.
Well, thanks for having me. We'll see you soon.
Jackie, that was awesome. Brian is awesome. I love that guy. And I wish we could have got Beth in the line too. I'd be curious to her perspective on this. But wow, what some massive changes. Now you're his coach. And so what has this been like for you to see these changes?
Man, we just love it. Like we love getting those updates. And I mean, I got to throw it all to Beth and Brian because they're just action takers.
Yeah.
When Brian says he's going to do something, and this is part of him being sober, right? So when he says he's going to do something, he's very serious about being held accountable. And he's okay if you throw it out to him and say, hey man, you said you're going to have this by today and you don't. He's like, okay, my bad. Let me get to it. He's an action taker. And that's the point that you should all take away from this is lay out the plan and then do the plan, even if it's a little step at a time.
Well, that's huge because like at the end of the day, you can have all these you can have a vision and maybe you have a perfect vision, but unless you actually start moving towards it, like you're not going to really see the results you want. And the other thing that struck me, Jackie, is like, here's a guy who on several fronts in his life was struggling, was not where he needed to be. And he saw like a gap between where he was and what he really desired. And yet all around me, I don't know about you, but I see people in not even as bad situations as Brian was in, and they still don't take action. And so like something has to change. And I also want to encourage everybody, like maybe you heard Brian's story and you thought that, maybe your life is more challenging right now, or it's less challenging, or you don't feel like you can make those changes, or there's something holding you back, or there's a reason why you're where you are. I just want to encourage you. It doesn't matter why you are where you are, but what matters is that the changes that you need to make are absolutely possible. They're absolutely achievable. And like Jackie just said, just small steps in the right direction have huge exponential results over time.
Yeah, you have to make a plan. I mean, you have to have those goals and waypoints, otherwise your vision's just a dream.
Yeah.
A vision's only a vision with action steps and waypoints and goals and then some celebration along the way for those little achievements. And that's what I feel like we find so often is we find students taking these steps, not realizing how far they've come, but really, enforcing in your life to celebrate every time you hit one of those waypoints or reach one of those goals in that vision, so that it just kind of solidifies that you're achieving those things, and it's motivation to go for the next one.
Well, and that all Brian's changes didn't happen overnight, and he mentioned that it's been a little bit of time, and so it is easy, I think, for a lot of us to lose track of how far we've come. We look at where we're still trying to go, and we forget about how far we've come. It's just sometimes human nature in a lot of us, and so that's a really, really good point, because otherwise it's so easy to lose momentum and feel like you're just spinning your wheels, but in fact you've made tremendous progress. So that's awesome. Speaking of action steps, if you are not part of the conversation, you're not part of the discussion, you want to join in on the Lifeonaire community, go ahead and download the free Lifeonaire app. You can go to lifeonaire.com to learn more. It's available for Android and iPhone devices. We'd love to have you over there. Brian's over there. Jackie's over there. I'm over there. All of our Lifeonaire community is in there having great discussions all around the focus of living an abundant life, of living a prosperous life, including all the things that we want to have and experience and do and be, and, getting rid of the things that we don't want to do. So maybe it's a job that's 2 or 3 weeks a month that you're constantly on the road and working, 60 plus hours a week that you don't want. Like, let's have those discussions. And I can't wait to see what happens for you when you start taking action steps. And that's your assignment between now and the next Lifeonaire episode. Your homework is to go take one step towards that vision, towards the life you want to achieve, the one you desire and the one you deserve. We'll see you next time. Thanks everyone for listening.